So let's just set the scene a little bit. We've been talking about cloud native being a common goal for operators for quite a long time, but I quite often think we don't really know why we're doing it. It seems like a good idea or a general thing rather than more exact thinking sometimes. Now, you have experience here, so why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Swisscom before we get into the interview? Thanks.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Annie.
Pleasure.
Yeah, my name is Ashan Senevirathne, and I work at Swisscom, where I'm involved in the overseeing a development of a cloud native automation framework at the mobile organization at Swisscom, while contributing to our cloud native transformation journey. So my responsibilities include overseeing key initiatives such as I mentioned, development and deployment and integration of this cloud native orchestration framework at the mobile workloads, including the 5G core, as well as any other cloud native network functions or applications that we bring into the mobile organization. This also includes end-to-end integration of the whole network integration into the mobile core as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah. And
So
also a
nothing
significant
trivial.
part of my role is to empower our teams to take the ownership and innovate and making our transformation community driven and take a decentralized approach.
Okay. So I think we're going to talk a bit more about that human element shortly, but just could you sketch out what cloud native means to you? And is it more than just about moving workloads to the cloud and to hyperscalers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we always have this conception of having cloud native means moving the workloads to the hyperscalers and such. Um, in my view, that while that can be part of the journey, the core of the cloud native is about how we design, build, and run our applications. It's about leveraging microservices, containers, and automation, and also integrating them into continuous delivery pipelines and make sure the systems are more scalable, resilient, and agile. Now, at its heart, cloud native represents a new mindset that we are seeing, a change of culture, again, this human aspect, as I mentioned, and also fundamentally rethinking how our infrastructure and applications, where we need to change the architecture to enable faster responses to changes and new opportunities. So it's more about efficiency, adaptability, and not just shifting workloads to public cloud per se.
But I guess you need to take the word work. Should we try that again? You need to take the workforce with you and for them to understand what you're doing, because otherwise workforces can be very resistant in very subtle ways. And I did like Kerry
Exactly.
Gilder, who's the CEO of Colt, saying to me that culture is the only thing that matters. And I think as part of transformation, it's really key. So how important in Swisscom's agenda is the move to cloud native right now? Is it the most important thing or one of several things that are going on at once?
Yeah, I think so. Cloud native is absolutely central to Swisscom's operations today. We are going through a significant transformation, shifting from being a traditional telco to being what we call a techco. It's not just a buzzword for us, it reflects a fundamental change in how we think, operate, and also um, we also have a big change in our technology stack. Now, our
Okay,
motivation, yep.
yeah, I was just going to say, so can you be more specific? I'm sorry about my cough, about your motivations for doing it.
Yeah, so this whole transformation from a telco to techco, we have two lanes per se. One is the cloud native journey. The other one is on bringing site reliability practices, where we can discuss it in the upcoming um, sections. Um, Now, our biggest motivation for going cloud native is it's to have this desire to have the agility, scalability, and the innovation. And we want to make it more efficient in our operations, enabling faster deployments for our new services, and also to respond more quickly to market changes. And again, that's more like the technology point of view. And also we want to, at the same time, bring the organizations upskill with the cloud native technologies and bring this cultural shift along. So it's quite crucial for us.
Okay, and what are the key demands that telcos face when adopting cloud native technologies for networks and operations, bearing in mind that cloud native was not designed for telecoms and we're kind of adapting it as we go, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. So telcos face a range of demands when it comes to adapting this cloud native technology, especially in terms of scalability, reliability, and security. And as I mentioned, these technologies require shift in mindset. It's important for us to, as well as important to us to have a shift in the infrastructure. When it comes to changing mindset, us, especially at Swisscom, we've been traditionally treated as like the engineers being working as system integrators. So we get the software from the vendor and then we integrate into the network. And in the 5G domain or within this cloud native journey, we are treating this software rather than black boxes, more white boxes. So we open the software and then we want to integrate by ourselves and also do the surrounding integrations to the network infrastructure per se, done in an automated way.
How
And
much?
also, yep, sorry, yeah. And also adhering to the cloud native practices and also leveraging some of the open source toolings that's available on the cloud native landscape. I think that's where we are headed towards.
I just wondered as well how much of a driver 5G standalone is
It's a main
in a
driver.
cloud native technology.
Yeah, exactly. So on the 5G 5G standalone, we are not only doing the standalone, we also have this product of 5G dual mode core. It also has the 4G aspect containerized and running on Kubernetes. So it involves the both 4G and 5G as microservices, which is running on the Kubernetes. And
4G and
Swisscom
5G are containerized. And what was the advantage of moving 4G, Asha?
So once we have the 4G part containerized, then we don't have to rely on the virtual machines anymore. So you don't have this operational overhead having the OpenStack layer. And also we don't have to manage the monolith type applications on where we had these VMs and such. So on when we move to the cloud native workloads with the 4G aspect of the technology stack, we also leverage all the observability stack, which changes with the open source tooling like such as Prometheus, the Grafana, and etc.
Okay, so
Yeah,
data observability is a huge thing, and especially
yeah,
when we
exactly.
start thinking about AI, right?
Yeah.
And I know we're
We're not
using
there yet, but that's something that we already started discussing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are the biggest benefits, would you say, for telcos and for Swisscom in adopting cloud native technologies? How, has it lived up to expectations, or is it too soon to say?
I think the biggest benefits that we see as an operator is being able to have a greater agility, scalability, and operational efficiency. Obviously,
Could you
once you
break
have,
that? Can you break that down a little bit? Because it's a big, bold statement. I mean, could you give us any facts like faster time to market or savings, or I don't know. You may not be able to because that might be commercially confidential. I understand that, but
I
it's
mean, I
just
can give an answer on the engineering level. So obviously, 5G has a lot of promises. So we can go to the network slices and all these different types of service agility that we bring in. But in the heart of the core, once we start automating uh, the mobile core with cloud native technologies, it brings us this elasticity and the programmability to the network. And one of the examples that we are doing at Swisscom is we are taking this intent-driven automation approach. So we have tools in place that we don't rely on using the IP addresses when we start configuring the network. So rather than engineers specifying the IP addresses, we rely on passing a high level intent. I don't want to go into too detail on that. What I mean is when we want to deploy a network function in the environment or in the network, we don't pass in the IP addresses in the preparation files. Rather, we say the intent to deploy the network function. So with that, we have gained quite a lot of efficiency in preparing these config files and also deployment of the configuration. So that's one part. And other part of the story is a lot of the deployments that we have done in the past, it involves using most of the tools outside to the Kubernetes layer. So when we talk about cloud native journey, obviously Kubernetes is at the core. And in the past, the way we have worked on or tackled Kubernetes instances is we have leveraged Kubernetes to deploy the applications or the network functions, but the management of these applications or the network functions, we have taken an outbound approach to the Kubernetes. So at Swisscom, what we also work on is bringing this outbound orchestration into a Kubernetes inbound orchestration. So by removing this complexity of the overhead of the orchestration capabilities, we are bringing a lot of increase in efficiency in the deployment. So for an example, when a service goes down, we can easily recover these services with this way of working. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the engineers don't spend too much time on preparing this network configuration files because the information that we need on the IP addresses and all this nitty-gritty information that we need, it resides on the Kubernetes layer. So we intend to work with high-level intents rather than going into too low-level configurations.
Okay, can you talk to me about whether you're adapting and adopting SRE, that's site reliability engineering, and maybe we can just explain a little bit what it is and why it's applicable to telco at all.
Yeah, sure. So that's like our second lane in parallel, going in parallel in our transformation journey. And yes, Swisscom is adopting the SRE, which stands for Site Reliability Engineering. And it's a discipline that focuses on improving the reliability, availability, and the performance of the services through engineering and automation. Now, it's originated at Google. There's a nice workbook produced by Google. It's quite lengthy and quite technical. And while it's done by Google, it's highly relevant for the telcos as it helps us to bridge the gap between development and operations.
So it's all about a certain approach to IT, right? A certain way of doing IT. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
it's improving the reliability by automating your operations. That's the heart of it. There are 7 principles defined through this set of practices. Few of the key ones are improving the reliability, your release management, observability, security, and such.
So, for example, would that involve using closed loop and machine learning? Would that fit?
That's part of it.
That's
Exactly.
that umbrella. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
And that's quite low level. What happens as you go higher up the automation chain, and how does it sit with the cloud native?
I mean, these two go hand in hand and complement with each other. So when it comes to the SRE practices, when we started the cloud native journey, we made sure that we start embedding these SRE practices from day one.
Okay, so it's a deployment method that facilitates the move to cloud native.
Deployment and the operational method, I would say.
Well.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So that kind of answers my next question, which was, can telcos adopt SRE before the move to cloud native? Well, I guess you get to grips with it before you need to do it, would be the answer to that, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Practice.
That's true. Yeah, at the same time, I mean, telcos can absolutely embrace SRE practices before migrating to cloud native workloads. One thing that we do at Swisscom is we started applying SRE concepts to our virtual network functions. More on the service layer, so it's agnostic of the technology that we use. And SRE and cloud native can evolve together. It helps to ensure we use reliability, resilience, regardless of whether you have VNFs or CNFs or virtual network functions or containerized network functions.
Do you foresee that at some point VNFs, virtual network functions, will disappear completely? And will that be as legacy is sunsetted?
Yeah, at some point, yes, but it's a long journey. And I think the question is not the VNFs being deprecated. The question is how fast we have pure cloud native network functions in place. Because oftentimes you do have container network functions and the software itself written in a monolithic way, so they don't adhere to the 12 principles of the microservices and such. So
what's the approach to dealing with that? I mean, you don't, presumably quite a lot of legacy software and processes and even services are not going to be with us forever. So you don't want to go through the whole process of making them cloud native. So then what do you do? Leave them as they are, or is there some halfway house that sits alongside the cloud native?
yeah, I think the lot of the life cycle of these virtual network functions can be automated and simplify the operations. Because it also, I mean, it's not just the deployment of the network function, it also adds this, how do you manage the configuration management? And oftentimes in telco applications, even if it's a virtual network function or the cloud native network functions, when it comes to the configuration management, it uses a interface called the telco proprietary interface called netconf. So this is quite common to all the network functions. So if you automate the config management, regardless of if it's a VNF or a CNF, it simplifies quite a lot and brings us these efficiencies even on the VNF world.
Okay, and how much of a bearing does SRE have on your design of services?
I mean, in on the service level, we should treat them as a service, and it should be agnostic of the network function if it's a virtual or a containerized. And that's where our mindset or our transformation journey is at. For us, when it comes to service, it's a set of configuration. That's how we have treated it so far, and that's why I mentioned earlier. So when it comes to the service level config, it should be regardless of the platform or the network function type or the technology stack that you use.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Now, you started on this work in Swisscom, the move to cloud native 3 years ago. What advice would you give, Ashan, to any telco that's still debating whether to adopt cloud native technologies? Would you shout, don't do it, it's terrible, or no, these are great reasons to do it?
Yeah, I think from the Swisscom side, we are quite fortunate that we started the journey a couple of years back, and we also took a greenfield approach to have the network done in a fully automated way from day one, and we are seeing the results now on that. And also we had a track on this SRE, right? So we also put quite a lot of focus on the SRE, bring SRE principles when we start building this stack on the cloud native journey. And my advice to the telcos is not to wait too long. The shift to cloud native is crucial when it's staying competitive in the future. It's also important to start small, experiment, and build a culture where teams feel empowered to take the ownership and of these new technologies. Because we talk cloud native now, and then next cycle is AI native. So it's about empowering your teams and have this right mindset and the culture.
Also, small successes build confidence, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um,
yeah.
yeah. And also, as at Swisscom, we also collaborate quite a lot with the open source community. We have also open source tools. So not just taking things from the community, we have also given back. And yeah, while we develop all this technology stack, we also quite heavily put focus on how we transform our operations, how we simplify the change management and reduce friction and embracing change, these sort of things. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience from Svetlana, and I'm going to take it now, Alton, at the end, if you don't mind, because we
Sure.
kind of you were just talking about automation. And she asked, did you manage to completely automate configuration management process? And do you use vendor provided tools to do it? Or did you create your own? Or maybe both?
Yeah, that's a good question. So configuration management is huge. I can talk for hours on that. It also depends on how you automate the configuration. Uh, Maybe I can give you a bit more detailed answer on this if I can have a couple of minutes. So
Yeah,
we
sure.
started the configuration management a couple of years back. We had the configuration in spreadsheets, Excel sheets, and then we migrated all the configuration into Ansible playbooks. And then what we've seen was we are taking a fire and forget approach. What it means is if the engineers access the CLI, the source of truth is not there anymore, because even though we use this automation, engineers can still go to the CLI and then apply these configurations manually. So it's still automated. It's not done in a pure GitOps way, if I say.
Okay. So
Now,
there's
yeah, now
variations depending on what it is. Okay.
exactly. So where we are heading now is to bring this automation or configuration management into the Kubernetes layer. So we are taking a fully cloud native approach. We are in the journey now. We have done some KubeCon presentations. We can share in the chat. Like, I don't know if there's a way of sharing past presentations and stuff for reference. But what we're trying to do now is bring this Kubernetes configuration management to the Kubernetes layer. So it has a reconciliation aspect and all the nice things that Kubernetes gives us.
Okay, yes, if you provide the link, we can share it with the audience. Okay, just thinking, Svetlana says thank you. I think that was a pretty good comprehensive answer. So also thinking about lessons learned, what you wish you'd known at the beginning, and you've learned over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm just wondering, how important is having formal roles like SecOps and DevOps and SRE and platform engineering? How important are those roles to
Yeah.
implement them and oversee the move from telco to techco?
Yeah, it's nice to have these formal roles like SecOps, DevOps, SRE, platform engineering. They're important. But I think what's important is more important is flexibility in a cloud native environment. Um, at Swisscom, we've learned that sticking too rigidly to define roles can hold us back. So what matters for us more is the mindset and the skills that individuals bring to the table in the end. And we are also seeing that roles needs to evolve and adapt to the needs of the project. When I say we will have either 5G core, there's a 4G core. At the same time, we also implement these SRE practices. So it's having the right mindset and also embrace the collaboration and be open for change. I think this is what's crucial. So yeah.
Okay, so I've talked, as you can imagine, to quite a lot of operators, and one of the themes that seems common is that if you bring the workforce along and give them new skills, it turns out quite a lot of people like learning new stuff. And so is what you're saying that the democratization of skills in certain
Exactly.
in technical areas works better than having sort of specialisms that are almost standalone?
Exactly. That's correct. And we also embrace quite a lot internally having this cross collaboration. So we oftentimes collaborate quite a lot with like for an example, the application teams collaborate quite a lot heavily with network infrastructure teams. So even though they're in two separate organizations, we work closely to enable this automation in this journey.
So
And
you think though that now, and especially when AI starts taking up immense amounts of capacity, that's been absolutely critical cross-functional
yeah, true.
cooperation,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also just so that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing is always a plus.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one thing. And the other part is I mentioned open sourcing.
Yeah.
We also take internally a community-driven approach. So having a mono repo where everyone can contribute to, the code is transparent to everyone within the organization, within the mobile organization, when I say organization here. And we embrace this way of working, and we would empower the teams moving forward as well to work this way. Yeah.
Okay, and that's an interesting point, Ashan. You've been talking about the mobile part of Swisscom, but of course, Swisscom has a vast fixed infrastructure as well. And with the cloud native, is mobile done very separately from fixed? You know, or is there any kind of strategic oversight or timetable that brings those two parts together, the fixed and the mobile?
No, we do have community of practices. So it's on many layers. So there's also this, we also heavily embrace bottom-up approach. So engineers working together with engineers. And also there are top-down initiatives where we can streamline the way we work, because oftentimes, I mean, even within the mobile organization, we see there's quite a lot of repetitive things done by every team.
Yeah.
So that's something that we also try to bring together, and it's a journey. Yeah.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
nearly out of time. I'm just wondering, with this democratization and people having access to information and people learning new skills, having new tools, it's very often that innovation comes from the most unexpected places in an organization. And I'm just wondering if you have found examples of that, or at least examples you can talk about.
Yeah, I think one of the things is IP address management. I think it's everyone can, or I can reach out to everyone when I say IP addresses, because it's well known for everyone. What we've managed to do is we reduce the complexity of managing these IP addresses. So there's no human involved when it comes to managing IP addresses. So it's done on the Kubernetes layer. We have implemented operator, a Kubernetes operator. It's something like it's a tool which extends this Kubernetes API. So and we have also open sourced it to the community, and we have seen that it's been there's quite a lot of interest from other operators within Europe, as well as projects such as Nefio and Silva. They're part of this
Yeah.
Linux Foundation. They've also started showing some interest on this tool. So it's quite nice to see what we worked on. It's also applies to other parts of the industry. So
So
yeah,
it's not only what your contribution is, but also what other people make of your contribution and how other people react to it, maybe in ways
exactly.
you did not see coming.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's always the best bit, really, I think. Ashan, thank you very much. That's all we've got time for now, but I hope you'll come back at a future date and update us, because I would think in the next year, maybe things are going
Sure.
to move pretty fast.